Thank you. We'll have it on just for a little while because we are going to be going into breakout rooms, but thank you so much. I just wanted to spend a couple minutes on that video, on the two videos. Just take a deep breath, just breathe in, all of us. Grateful that we're here this evening. Grateful that we can share our thoughts. And we have a few minutes, and I just thought, if anyone wants to share some of their reactions, their initial reactions to either one of those videos, or maybe even thoughts about how they might be related and complementary.
I think the second one, Jen, was a lot more impactful than a microaggression. I mean, those weren't in the same category. And I think we started this conversation in another space in our equity meeting that, that doesn't kind of line up with the subject of microaggressions, and I understand the professor or the person that presented the first, did go over the scope.
Right.
But I just think the second video was a lot more. We're talking about a larger impact than a microaggression.
Yeah, it kind of it's interesting that the CNN article actually speaks about microaggressions, and this was the video that they chose to put together to go with it. I feel the same way. And the reason I showed it was for that, because I think that when we think about what microaggressions really are, they're little bits of bias that come out in almost unconscious ways. We can argue about whether they're, all that is conscious or unconscious. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. But what concerns me the most is
You're
that
frozen.
Am I frozen?
Okay, you were for a second. You're okay now.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for letting me know that, Eileen. I appreciate that. I think the thing that for me, I want us to consider is just how microaggressions are connected to the bias that's insidiously part of our culture altogether. And for a person who has a lived experience of experiencing multiple microaggressions in a course of a day, they become not small, they become large, and they affect, think about how quickly that can affect someone's sense of self, someone's sense of well-being, someone's sense of safety. So that's why I showed it, and I suspect it might be controversial. Anyone else have a comment about that?
I do. I put up my hand. I don't know if you can see it.
No, I can't, but thank you, Eileen, for just speaking up. I
That
see it.
second video struck me. I was wondering where the microaggressions were in that second video. It seemed to me that it was talking about macroaggression. I mean, what was happening?
Oh, now you're frozen, Eileen.
Racism. And I'm not sure what the message was in terms of microaggression. Maybe you understand it better, but the only thing I could think of is that anybody who has lived that kind of life and it has a sensitivity to people's reactions or people's actions, that a lot of things could become a microaggression for that person, because what they were.
Yes, that's true. And Eileen, you're freezing up, so I'm gonna say thank you for that thought.
The older man was talking about Jim Crow.
Yep.
And the younger men were talking about what it means to be a Black man in America and in different stages of their lives.
Yeah.
That was all. I kept thinking, and my husband is listening to it, and he says, what about those being macroaggressions?
Thank you. Yeah,
they're not mini, they're big.
Thank you, Eileen. And I think that's the point. I think you labeled the point, because to me, I don't think there's anything that's micro about aggression, frankly. I'm going to lower your hand. There we go. Sorry. And that's why I showed it, because I think each one of us has a responsibility to understand how critical it is that we work through this, that we understand that when we are careless about our words or our thoughts or our behaviors, that we're actually touching someone's trauma. And when we do that, we're touching someone's life and their well-being. And I think it's just, that's why I showed it to you. I hope you can understand that. Let's see, I want to keep on track. Maybe we have time for one more question. I want to talk a little bit about bias. How important do you think bias is in playing into microaggression, racial aggression, macroaggression? How does bias play in our society?
Well, I think unconscious bias is basically the starting point of what manifests as a microaggression.
Mhm.
So if you have some unconscious bias towards a particular race or a particular, person with, maybe male versus female, or people who may be overweight, or people who have a strange accent. That all comes from, I think, your unconscious bias.
Mhm.
And it just plays out
Mm.
as these microaggressions. And I know my husband has this tendency when he talks about people, he makes a reference to a situation and he'll say, this nice black man,
Mm.
or this nice black woman. And I'm like, I feel like saying, well, you don't describe other people as that nice white man or that nice white woman. And I don't think he really sort of, gets it,
Mhm.
unless I bring it up, which of course can be uncomfortable, then he reacts. So it's just like, it's an unconscious thing that I think
Yeah.
people just need to be made aware of. Very
Yeah.
subtle things. Yeah.
And Dr. Monica talked about the ouch. We had a little lesson here about ouch and educate. And that brought that to light when you were talking about your husband, Sandy, because I think that's something that we all, when you think about interrupting, what we're trying to do is interrupt something that could, we have that capability of just turning the other way and letting something happen,
Mhm.
or just ignoring it in ourselves or
Mhm.
in our husband or wife or children or whatever. We also have that opportunity to interrupt it. And it can be done in a very educational way, a very good way.
Yeah.
It can also be done stop if it's something that's really harmful.
Mhm.
But I do think that's where we, as here in the league, as we're trying to build diversity, as we're trying to build a welcoming culture, you have to sometimes draw the line, throw the line down and say, we can communicate with each other in a different way, in a different manner. There's a different way to say exactly, how much you appreciate a person without having to make it sound as if, oh, you're a nice man, even though you're black. Yeah. And it's just, we don't realize the impact of our words, right? We just don't realize the impact of our words, and that's where we can grow. Yeah. Ronell, do you have anything you'd like to ask or add to this conversation before we go forward?
No. Wait for you to go forward.
Okay, all right. Let me look and see. Okay, we are going to go back to,
I'm sorry to interrupt, but my husband decided he'd like to contribute something to this conversation. So if you don't mind.
He has 1 minute. He has 1
He
minute.
also is, he's also a
Quiet,
league member.
We got 1 minute.
1 minute, because we're on a schedule.
I want to share a reaction that I have, and I think most other
Sure.
people have. You're walking in a neighborhood that is kind of disreputable, and you see a black man coming toward you on the same side of the street as you are. Your first inclination, my first inclination, is to cross the street.
Very
Now
good.
that's conscious bias, actually, because I'm well aware I'm doing that. But I also would do the same thing if I were in a lower class white neighborhood and there was a white guy in a hoodie coming my direction. I would cross the street.
Mhm.
I mean, there are nuances there. And actually, as I think about this, the black person I've microaggressed against him.
Yes, you did.
Not microaggressed against the other, even though it's kind of a stereotype. I guess just because it's not a defined stereotype. I don't know. There's all these nuances that make it difficult.
Well, tonight we did set off working about talking primarily about racial microaggressions, but microaggressions can happen in any situation. It could be microaggressions against people who are in wheelchairs, for example. We just don't like people who are living with disabilities. So, it can happen almost with any set of people. But to get to the crossing the street, that is a microaggression of the kind that we talk about. And surprisingly enough, I have a friend who is a Haitian American, and he confessed to me that walking across the Brooklyn Bridge, he feels quite uncomfortable himself if he is confronted by several Black men. So we have to think seriously about what we have done to an entire segment of our society to be labeled in such a way. And what's really sad was thinking about how one of the men said in the video, we would not have been looking at that video so many times, like deer in the headlight, watching that video again and again, media showing it, if it had been a white woman or a white man. And that just stopped me in my tracks.
We didn't see the video, so I don't know what
Oh,
they're talking
okay.
about. Somebody getting beaten up.
That's okay. That's okay. It's if you missed the video, that's okay. We're just going to move on at this point now. So what I'm going to do is share the screen again. And I thank you, Eileen, thank your husband for his comments, and thank everyone for your comments. We just need to move on to cover the stuff we're going to cover. Let's see. All right. Now let's see if I can get to the next slide. All right. Renelle, I'm going to give this one to you. The one, sorry. This is the definitions.
Okay. A microaggression is a subtle behavior, verbal or nonverbal, conscious or unconscious, directed at a member of a marginalized group that had derogatory, hostile, harmful effect. The effect of a microaggression is not minor. Number 2, the everyday verbal, nonverbal, and environmental slights, insult, intentional or unintentional, that communicate hostile, derogatory, or negative messages to target persons or group based on solely upon effects of their identities.
Thank you. Going to see if I can find chat. Hold on, I'm just finding my chat. Oh, there it is. Okay. Okay, I'm going to put into the chat for you now. This is this is a handout. It's got definitions of microaggressions, just what Ronell read, but there's a little bit more in there that you can follow. And I'm also going to take the time right now to drop in the chat. We have a folder of resources with some additional things, so I'm going to put that in for everyone as well. There you go. Okay. I think that'll help sort of define better what microaggressions really are. And I think one of the takeaways here is just to remember how any microaggression that you might see or might be involved in or observe is connected to a broader aspect of society in which many other microaggressions are happening by other people, and the total overall effect is huge. So just to kind of keep that in mind. And now I'm going to stop share again. And what we're going to do is we're going to practice this a little bit with some breakout rooms. And I am going to do my very best to do this. Unless I have a volunteer from this group that would be willing to help me, I'll be doing it on my own. So be a little bit slower. What we're going to do is Ronell and I are going to read 3 different scenarios. They're basically stories, and they're based on different things, different events or different happenings. And then what we'll do is we're going to put everybody into breakout rooms in groups of 3 or 4, depending on how it breaks out. And you'll have 5 minutes to answer a first set of questions, which is really just a way of kind of the story, your impression, and so on. Then we'll bring you back into the main room just momentarily, just to clear your head. And then we'll go back into the same rooms again and work on responses to those stories. So that's a general overview of what's going to happen. Does anybody have any questions about that? Okay. Ronell, are you ready to read the first scenario?
I don't see it in my email.
Uh-oh. Okay, hold on a second. Let me see if I can let me send it to you. Hold on, I'll send you scenario 1. Back to here. Return now. Actually, I'm just going to put it in for everyone here. Okay. All right, it's in the chat, Ronell. If you want to read it out loud, that would be great for everyone.
Scenario number 1. Your award planning meeting was held in the evening at a campus library. Your only Black member arrived, accompanied by a campus police person who escorted her not for her safety, but holding her arm roughly. Because they were suspicious, she was not legitimate, saying, "I found this woman hanging around the hallway. Do you know her? Is she supposed to be with you?" The member nearest the door rose and said, "Yes, she is a member. Let her in. She can be very well spoken about civics in the Black community."
Thanks. And so just, take in that scenario. It's actually in the chat, so you can reread it, and we'll be working with that. So it's a matter of identifying the microaggressions in that scenario and And we'll be working with that coming up. And I think without discussion, we'll move into scenario 2, which I'll read. A Latinx League of Women voter member raised her hand at a recent meeting to announce a new opportunity for partnering with Make the Road Pennsylvania. If nobody knows what that is a Latinx civic engagement group. This community group is, dealing with jobs and working class communities of color. One of the board members asked, "How are you aware of this? Who is the person in charge of voting rights at Make the Road Pennsylvania?" The member responded that she was the person in charge and the league's main contact. So the other member then replied, "But who besides you is the real contact? Please send me contacts so we can contact all Make the Road people directly." And I just put in there, if you would like to look up what Make the Road is and does, there's a link to their organization there. And
Yep.
now, if you can.
I just wanted to say that September 15th to October 15th is Hispanic Culture Month.
Yes, thank you. That's so good. Thank you, Susan, for reminding us of that. And now with the third scenario, Renelle, I'll let you read that one. I just put it into the chat.
Scenario number 3. 2 young LGBT/TGNC students have stayed on at League of Women Voters Services table at your community college. They ask if they can help with voter registration while they was on break from their classes. Your voter service director says no. We have a liability insurance that prevents non-members from helping, and you have not been formally trained to do voter registration. Later, at a member debrief, a member stated that the visitor who came to our table last week was very pretty for a transgender woman. I wonder if he did the surgery to make himself really a woman.
Thanks. Okay, so we've got 3 scenarios. And what we're going to do is we're going to break you into breakout rooms, and you'll have 5 minutes. With any luck, there we go. Breakout rooms. You'll have 5 minutes. And what I want to put in, I'm sorry, I need to put the questions into the chat. The part 1 questions, and I'll read them to you as I put them in. This goes to everyone. There we go. The questions are this. What were the microaggressions and biases at play? How do you feel personally? Just like taking a sense of your reaction to the story itself. How do you feel? Do you feel angry? Do you feel disgusted? Do you feel sad? That's what I want you to think about. And then how were the victims harmed? And of that, what, in your opinion, did the victim experience? Knowing that you're not the victim, but trying to empathize with the victim. So, okay, so we're going to create 1, 2. I think, let's see what happens with this. All right. Just give me a minute here. I apologize for this taking a little bit longer. We're not. Okay. we're going to open rooms, and I'm so I'm so untechnical about this that if anything happens, just remember your link, and my email is equity@palwv.org in case you have trouble getting back in. Okay, we're going to open rooms. Remember the 3 questions. I need to assign. Let's see. Room 1 will have scenario 1. Room 2, scenario 2. Room 3, scenario 3. And room 4, you can go and do scenario 1. So we'll have 2 rooms, 1 and 4 with scenario 1, and then 2 and 3 following the numbers. Okay, 5 minutes.